Good afternoon and welcome to another interesting episode of Standpoint. I am Veronica Dan Ikboy. It is now one drama too many in the Nigerian political space. Politicians are strategizing and realigning. Foes are becoming friends and friends becoming foes. Like a game of chess, some politicians have knocked off the party on whose platform they secured victory in 2015 and have joined ranks with other opposition parties just 6 months to the 2019 general election. But this is only the beginning of more drama and stunts that will unfold before the election. On the first half of the show, we would focus on the gale of defections and political realignments ahead 2019 elections. Later on, we would beam our satellite on the crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party in Ogun State. With me in the studio is a lawyer and an aspiring lawmaker, Adebayo Ibrahim Razak. And also we have Prince Segun Seriki of the PDP chieftain from Ogun State. Gentlemen, thanks for coming to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's go straight on to, it's looking more like a deja vu of events that transpired prior to the 2015 general elections. And when a chunk of National Assembly members dumped the ruling People's Democratic Party for the All Progressive Congress. Once again, there's a gale of defections at the National Assembly. 37 members of the House of Reps and 14 senators have deserted the ruling APC for opposition parties. Now, these political deserters say their actions are in the interest of the nation, a position that many Nigerians say will be foolhardy to believe. Now, I'll start with you, Prince Segun. What do you make of the sudden defections that, heralded this week?
Yeah, thank you. World over, the beauty of democracy is the freedom it provides. Provided things are done according to rules and regulations, there's nothing bad in defection. And in the context of Nigeria, particularly the parliament, there is provision for the parliamentarians to cross carpet. The only proviso is division within the platform upon which they were elected. And in the circumstances that we have found ourselves, there is seemingly a division in the party upon which they have been elected, having created the APC or whatever. But having said all those, in all our actions, we should endeavor to put the consideration of the country paramount, because we must appreciate that we are Nigerians a priori before we can even be politicians. And that's about the issue.
But then when you look at the seeming reasons for which this person's decided to shift grounds, what do you really say is in the interest of the country or the people?
Thank you very much. If we've been following the array of activities that's been happening in respect to these subject matters in the last few days, certain words will be jumping at us constantly on both sides of the divide. Words like automatic ticket syndrome, people wanting automatic ticket for return, words like power sharing, words like lack of political value or capital. And what this points to us is the fact that when you start looking at the issue of automatic ticket syndrome as a criteria for jumping ship, or when you start hearing descriptions such as power sharing, or you start hearing phrases like lack of political value or capital, the question comes back to us as Nigerians. If we look at it carefully, the question is that all of these phrases that are being used, is it in the interest of Nigerians? Or at the pointers to the privatization of the democracy that we practice here? And if it's about power sharing amongst who? Is it about amongst the people or amongst these individuals? If it's about automatic ticket syndrome, when you want an automatic ticket, is it premised on the fact that you've performed? Is it also premised on the fact that the people want you to return? Or is it about you putting pressure on the political party that you must have an automatic return? Or is it about the political party not taking into consideration what the desires, what the position of the people or the citizen are, and issuing an automatic ticket for someone to return to office irrespective of evaluation for performance or assessment for delivery of good governance. And this is where it brings us to that when we look at the entire scenario that has been ongoing for the past few days, we really feel sorry for the democracy to a reasonable extent. And that's why we must align to people that strongly believe that our democracy must find a strong footing in ideology. Because if it's about ideology and the people and the democratization of these institutions themselves, then the selfish phrases that we are hearing, such as automatic tickets, such as power sharing, such as lack of political value or political prosecution, we won't be hearing it. It's evidence that the democracy has a long way to go.
And so this decision being made, this easy cross-carpeting is not really about the people. Invariably, that's what you're saying.
Well, I mean, if it's about the people, one thing would happen. It wouldn't happen overnight suddenly that the country would wake up to it. Because if it's about the people, the first priority of the legislature is the responsibility of representation. That is relating to the people that you represent. So there would have been some level of dialogue on the local level with your constituents, letting them know the position. The decision to cross carpet would not be that of the legislator. It would be that of his constituents.
But some people said that they had some dialogue, like the Kwara State governor was having a dialogue with his constituents recently, and he said they have agreed that he should move.
Yeah, quite frankly, what he is trying to talk about dialogue is not tenable in this instance, because for people who have been conversant with the political dynamics of Nigeria, what is happening is long expected.
Really? How do you mean?
What is happening is long expected in the context of lack of internal democracy in the parties. You see, the problem with Nigeria is that we don't face reality. We only get confronted with reality when it happens.
What is this reality?
The reality is difficult for right-thinking human beings to be put in a party and forced to obey rules against set regulations. And that's
forced?
What... Yes, because when you manipulate...
They agree to be part of this party.
You agree to be part of the party,
yeah,
by consenting to the constitution of the party, by consenting to certain laid rules. Unfortunately, characters that find themselves in power and government, inclusive of party administration, they manipulate those rules in such a manner that sometimes it senselessly makes it difficult for you to obey. When you say there are congresses or convention of party, and you have manipulated it such that the result has been predetermined, it is unlike in those days. I was a member of the Federal House in the Third Republic. You will never know the outcome of a primary until it is conducted. But nowadays, people will just force on you a gubernatorial candidate, a senatorial candidate. They will force on you a resolution at a purported convention populated by just clowns shouting, and they just fulfill requirements of law without allowing the dynamics of law to take place. You see, when you do such thing for people, at the point they will be frustrated, but it piles up until it gets to a stage, it busts out. Those are the kind of problem we are also having even in our home party. You suppress, after some time, it will explode.
And so the question will be, how did we come down to this level, seeing you were part of the Third Republic and this was not what was happening?
It's unfortunate. We did not notice. When we started this democracy, the moment, with due respect, the respected statesman, elder statesman, former president, started to arrogate the powers of the party to himself, and governors were doing same in states, we were creating problems that we are now seeing. In those days, the president would just change the national chairman at will, just like changing clothes. So people don't get interested until problems become unsurmountable and it now manifests. In all this, my prayer is for Nigeria to survive these glaringly selfish manipulations in manners that look like gastarism. It is unfortunate, but that is the reality we have found ourselves. But the people should resist it, because the process of election had been turned into a ritual of endorsement where the people even have no say. It is quite unfortunate.
Can the people resist it like he is saying?
Well, the people can resist it.
Resist it?
They can resist it. But the easiest way for the people and the safest way for the people to resist it still comes back to institutional resistance. Now, when you look at the political system or the democracy that we operate is a party democracy. So the Constitution would tell you, for example, except through a political party, on the platform of a political party, sponsored by a political party, you cannot have any form of representation or occupy any elective office except on the platform of a political party. So that leaves us to one access door, the political parties. And that's why I started by saying that there is a privatization of democracy in Nigeria. Because what happens then is that individuals which should come together, because this is public trust, put on the platform of a political party to serve the interest of the people, which is the essence of democracy, representational government. But for the people then to have a say, I think one of the things, or one of the underlying factors, is the concept of internal democracies within the parties themselves. Because except the parties can offer democracy to themselves, then they cannot offer it to the public. And one of the things, the challenges that happen is, for example, the primaries. Let's compare the recent primaries in Osun State, which was not a delegate system as it used to be. Because what political parties had in the past was a delegate system primary, whereby maybe 36 people in the population would be chosen by the leadership of the party to represent and decide who becomes the representative of the party in the next election. In that situation, what happens is that the general public, even if you have a PVC, what then happens, even if you're a member of a political party, what then happens is that you don't get the enfranchisement rights of the Constitution to decide who governs you. You only pick from what you have been given. So you pick from the best of the worst possibly, or from the worst of the best.
All right,
and
quickly, we have Matthew on the line calling from Ogun State. Go ahead with your contribution, Matthew. Matthew, are you there? Well, it seems Matthew is not there, but as soon as you can reconnect with us, do call in again to make your contribution, so you can just wrap up your thoughts.
And that's what happens. You get to choose what is made available to you, and a beggar truly has no choice. And on the side of the people influencing the system, also there's this citizen responsibility of the people that we as citizens must continue to hold high. And if need be, must be entrenched even through the educational system, right from the primary school to the secondary school to the university, to know the value of being a citizen. And the truth is that an average citizen would sell their birthrights, you know, for a plate of pudding in the democracy of Nigeria.
Isn't it because of how we have, you know, built our politics to ensure that they have no choice but to seemingly sell their rights for a pot of soup or a plate of food?
You are very, very correct. You see, in a poverty economy, a human being becomes less human. To have principle, you must have some element of contentment, which is not enough alone, and sufficiency. If you are not self-sustaining to some level that can be managed with contentment, you have lost value. You are just an advanced animal. The reality of the situation we have found ourselves in Nigeria is that our population is majorly of advanced animals. It makes it very, very ridiculous that rich people are very audacious to aspire to want to get things because they know we have no say. The process of democracy has been trivialized into naira and kobo, ridiculously, even to high level of credible people. You will be shocked at how they sell their conscience. So we are really in a serious problem, and I think for as long as our economy is bad, the provision of social amenities is not there, we will just be playing fool of ourselves talking about democracy, because the shortcomings of sustaining democracy in the real sense are not there. People are just giving people 500 naira, 1,000 naira, and they don't even understand not what they are doing, because a poor person, an hungry person, will not even know that after a meal, you will still be hungry. It is as pathetic as that. And our leaders are finding it favorable selfishly to perpetually maintain our people in poverty. And we are now running government as of humanitarian service. People are now donating to their constituencies as if it's as of favor. It is a very pathetic situation. It is a very pathetic situation.
We have elections ahead of us, 2019. Is there anything we can do in the short term? Because even the ruling party is beginning to look at building ideology, an ideological party.
Well, I mean, the elections are around the corner, and there's a clarion call to all the civil society organizations. There's a clarion call to all the social organizations, including yourself and myself, including the smallest social units in the society, which is the family as well too. And beyond the issue of poverty is a greater challenge of ignorance. You see, when the essence of a thing is not known, abuse is then inevitable. Mm-hmm. And some of the challenges that we find in the public is that an average citizen, if, for example, let me tell you something interesting now. If you take 10 Lagosians now, randomly from different constituencies, and you ask them, who's the governor of the state? Before you conclude that statement, they will quickly tell you that it's Akinwumi Ambode. But then ask them, who's your representative in the State House of Assembly? They don't know. Who's your representative as the councillor in your ward? They don't know. Nigerians don't have an holistic understanding of that government is 3 arms, and that each arm of government work to complement one another in order to ensure adequate good service delivery in terms of governance. So what the people focus on is the executive arm of government and what they expect from the executive. And because they don't have adequate knowledge of the other arms of government, they automatically also transplant the responsibility of the executive into these other arms of government. And that's why you see that in the legislative institution that we have in Nigeria, you have the existence of executive power in legislative institution, or executive expectation on the side of the people from a legislative representative. So the issue of reorientating, educating the citizen right from even through this educational institution, from primary school, secondary school, cannot be excused. Poverty would be there, and it must be addressed. But beyond poverty is the issue of educating the public on what is their bargain in this democracy, knowing fully well that the highest citizen and the highest office in the land is that of the citizen, and that democracy is a tool of rights, not a tool of privilege. And I think if that can be achieved to a reasonable extent, we've seen how social media, information, education through social media has translated a reasonable size of the population from where we used to be to where we are now. And it shows that educating the public can address the political challenges that we also have in Nigeria.
All right, now let's come back to the defections that led us down this path. Now, the PDP has been trying to come together to form some sort of a formidable opposition to the ruling party, and it had a coalition, or formed a coalition with about 38 parties, and now there are defections, and the majority of these persons that defected are moving back to the PDP. Now, how does this position the party ahead of 2019?
I think if properly handled, it positions the PDP as the party to beat in the general elections of 2019. But basically, like I said, the overriding objective of our political process should be the nation. For as long as the purpose of working together politically is just to capture power, we will be coming to the same problem. So I expect a robust planning that will be fundamentally ideological towards the advancing the condition, the socio-economic condition of the people in all this drama. But if the drama is basically about capturing power, it will just be a musical chair where this thing will become a continuous ritual every 4 years, which will be very terrible for the country. It will be most unfortunate if the overriding decision is because of self-interest without consideration for the person, for the masses. It is also very difficult, and as social scientists will confirm, the interests of people are also difficult to determine, most especially when the people are poor. You see, the poor people are complicated patients.
All right, we'll come to that. We have Samuel on the line calling from Oyo. Samuel, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Go ahead with your contribution.
One problem, poverty is the number one factor. The number two factor is that our vote has not been counting. That is the truth about vote election in Nigeria. From 1990 now, our election does not determine who will become the governor or the president. So people just think that, what am I going to waste my time for? I better go and pursue my daily bread and leave these people, because we have the Godfather syndrome, and that has been going on. So when people know that their vote can count, then we will be fair to vote. But when you know your vote, we don't count. For example, in my area, they did the local government election. No councillor came to my area. No ward chairman came to my area. That is the local government election. The council did not come. The chairman did not come. How do you want the governor to come? So we need to ensure, poverty is very, very crucial. We need to ensure that our vote, until we can lose in Ekiti, they were buying vote for the highest bidder. It happened in Ondo. It happened everywhere for the highest bidder, for the highest bidder. So until we can stop this fight for vote, then we can, our people can start coming. And then we don't need to waste more time. You go to the place, you have to stay 2-3 hours. Why can't I vote when I get there? Like my ATM card. I get to my bank now, I dig in my something, I vote, I can go away. I can vote anywhere. The thing will record that I'm taking money at social bank of a branch at social time. Let's develop our area to be able to.
Samuel, thank you so much for your contribution. You wanted to react to that?
You see, the problem with Nigeria is handling issue on exigency. Until we follow rules and regulations, we will continue to have this problem. And we have a nonchalant attitude to issues that will determine our fate. Like I was saying, when we started this democracy in 1999, the founders of those parties, particularly the PDP, were hedged out of the party without anybody talking about it. People now personalize party. I had expected our president, given his background, to discountenance the issue of playing to people for him to be re-elected and build structures. That is the structure that will sustain even his re-election without effort. And that's what Obasanjo should have done for us in 1999. But when you allow people to enslave you with personal interest of perpetration in office, the tendency for you to be anti-people is going to be improved, because you are not really talking about the people. And majority of these governors, of these senators, of these members of the Federal House are actually circumstantial representative of people decreed by certain people, not necessarily by the masses of the people.
All right, I come to you now. When you look at the political strength of each of the defectors, would you categorically say that they do not have electoral value, and how does this position the ruling party for the 2019?
Well, you know, the first thing that I personally perceive as an institutional solution to our challenge in democracy is the legislative institution. If we are able to get it right in the legislature, there's tendency, very high tendency, that we'll get it right democratically. Now, this is a simple case study. Show me a failed legislative institution, I would show you a failed democracy. Show me a thriving legislative institution, I will show you a thriving democracy. And also, when we begin to label our legislators as people with low or no electoral value, it simply means, because what should drive the legislature in the first place? I mean, if you look at your constitution, it's not by accident that in highlighting the arms of government, that the legislature is highlighted as the #1 arm of government. It's first among equals, because it should be that arm of government that should promote the value of democracy on a day-to-day basis. But looking at them and being labeled as people with no electoral value. It's the fact that a legislator has looked at and the vote that you enjoyed is not based on your personal value to that society or to the constituency that you're representing. It's a downward flow syndrome where the vote is so governor on the same political party, and because the governor is from this political party, possibly all the legislature in the state will be on that political party, or the local government chairman will be from that political party, or the councillor will be from that political party. There is no mechanism in Nigeria, local grassroots mechanism, that allows the people to test, evaluate values such as integrity, capacity, competence, record of service, and the rest of that in decision making.
We have Badmus calling from Scotland. Go ahead with your contribution.
Now, you see, the problem with Nigeria is that it's just like the issue of garbage in, garbage out. We cannot get what we don't have. I became the senior prefect of my secondary school by election. So we were taught what election is. I have to campaign. I have to use the calendar of our house to make my poster. So by the time we finish secondary school, we already know what democracy is, what vote is. And that is exactly what is happening in most of the developed countries. What they should do, what they should promise, and how they can make a promise and fulfill it. As at the time I was doing my second degree in University of Dundee, I was a class rep. I was with my children, because most of my classmates, they were my children. The vice president was to contest. He invited me. I look at their program. They analyze what they are going to do as students, and they give you the fact and figure how those things will be achievable. So when you now come back to Nigeria as a nation, when you look at the people who are into politics, what set of people are in politics? Why are they in politics? What is their motivation? So their motivation is mainly about money and how to make money. At times when I look at the country, I will be weeping in my mind that how can we have APC, for instance, that they cannot sit down and say, okay, this is the problem facing our states. This is the reason why they cannot pay salary. They are not even discussing with the people why they cannot pay salary. The APC as a party is not coming out to tell us.
Well, Badmus, thank you so much for your contribution, because we're running out of time. But quickly wrap up your thoughts.
Yeah, just leaping from where he mentioned. I mean, look at from 1999 till date. How many Senate presidents were impeached from their seats as a result of executive incursion into legislative business? And there are certain principles in democracy that we must uphold. Separation of power is one of it. Constitutionalism is one of it. Rule of law is one of it. At the end of the day, if the value that puts you in the house is not your personal owned value, if you don't take ownership of your constituency and establish yourself through accountability and consistent interference with your constituent, somebody is going to wake up one day and tell you don't have an electoral value. That's non-negotiable.
Okay, we'll quickly go on a short break. When we return, we will be focusing on the leadership crisis rocking the Ogun State chapter of the PDP. But I must thank you, Adebayo Ibrahim Razak, for your contribution. But Prince Segun Seriki still remains with us. Stay with us. Well, the leadership crisis rocking the Ogun State chapter of the People's Democratic Party has taken an ugly turn that has culminated in the expulsion of Senator Buruji Kashamu from the party. The National Executive Committee of the PDP approved the expulsion of the senator and 3 others for hobnobbing with the opposition. But Senator Kashamu has described his suspension as lawless and undemocratic, stating that no due process was followed as enshrined in the party's constitution. The crisis that has lingered for more than a year factionalized the party, with both factions fighting for control of the PDP structure in Ogun. Senator Buruji Kashamu controls one faction, while Sikiru Ogundele controls the other. Though the national leadership of the PDP has confirmed the Sikiru faction as the authentic faction, the actors have refused to sheath their swords. Prince Segun Seriki, who has been with us in the studio, is of the Buruji Kashamu faction, and he is still in the studio. We also reached out to the Sikiru Ogundele faction. They gave us their word, but failed to show up last minute. You were part of those that was also suspended. Now, or rather expelled, rather. The process, the constitution of the party states the process before a person, a member of the party, is expelled.
Yes,
yes.
Yeah.
But was due process followed to, you know, get to this?
Not only due process. It was done in outright, stupid, bad faith.
You need to watch our words, please.
I am personally one of the people. This is the memo that the national chairman wrote to the PDP NEC, upon which I was expelled. I have gone through this memo. Only 3 times my name featured in the heading and in the introduction and conclusion for expulsion. There is no offense attributable to my name. And I can tell you, nobody contacted me as to any allegation before the expulsion, ditto the other 3 people. And the constitution of PDP is very clear in Article 51. It anticipates the committal of offense that will warrant punishment. You see, because all these are issues that are affecting our democracy in a manner that will run into problem. Self-aggrandizement, abuse of office, behaving in a manner as to whether rules and regulations are non-existent. The expulsion was done without notice to any of us. In the first instance, the Article 51 states that if there is any offense, there should be a disciplinary committee. It should be communicated to the offender. A date should be fixed for hearing, and upon hearing, then the National Working Committee can decide and NEC can approve. In my personal instance, I was never alleged anything. In the particular instance of Engineer Bayodayo, who is the chairman of the party in Ogun State, and Semi Olad Shodipo, who is the secretary, you have enduring cases with these gentlemen. They won a case in the High Court where they have been certified to be the chairman and secretary, respectively, of the party in Ogun State until 2020, when another set of congresses will take place, not expecting these acts of impunity. Now, you have appealed that judgment. The judgment had been dismissed in the Court of Appeal. You had gone back to the Court of Appeal to reapply for reinstatement of the dismissed appeal. May 12th, judgment was entered where your application was dismissed for lack of relevance. Now, if you are in court with certain people and you have lost to them in court, and you now resort to expelling them, it becomes ridiculous. And when you look at the 4th person being Senator Kashamu, you have suspended him unlawfully, you have joined issue with him in court over that suspension, you have been lambasted by the High Court for outreaching your powers, which was in the case of lawless caretaker that we had previous to this executive that is now misbehaving again. So it's quite unfortunate. And when you now look at what are the ingredients, what are the allegations? The allegations are hobnobbing with APC for crying out.
Were there evidences of
there was no evidence, except these people probably think they are running a a regimental battalion where people just join your party and they cannot greet this or whatever. So it is ridiculous. And they try to add in this memo an interview supposedly granted by Senator Kashamu where he was stating the obvious in the Ekiti election. You see, because when we come to equity, you come to equity with a clean hand. If you had perpetrated injustice on people, and you are now talking about justice, it is laughable. The circumstances that led to that, to our failure in Ekiti is predictable. When all major stakeholders were chasing out of the party by Fayose, and it was as ridiculous as for him to want to enjoy gubernatorial privileges. You rubbish the sovereignty of Nigeria by insulting the president, and you created the environment that they meted on him that resulted into his crying sheepishly on the television. You see, all those things are predictable.
All right. Now that all of this, due process was not followed, now Senator Buruji Kashamu is saying that this cannot stand. And so what is the process that you and him want to institute?
Not necessarily Senator Kashamu saying it cannot stand. It reasonably cannot stand because Nigeria is not a jungle. Nigeria is a country of law, and you cannot just do anything and expect disobeying law will be sustained.
But this has to be amicably resolved because the crisis is rocking the party in the state.
Sincerely talking to you, as far as I'm concerned, I think the creation of crisis of factions in Ogun State is maybe majorly media propelled, because every society are governed by law. In the context of our Nigerian country, we are under law. That's what the Constitution says. It is not compulsory that we should agree on issues. The courts are there, they open every day for people to join issues, and judgments of the courts are binding on everybody, irrespective of your status. If you disagree, you can go to appeal. If you further disagree, you can go to Supreme Court. Those are fundamental. As far as these issues are concerned, this is the situation, ma'am. There is a judgment given by Buba, judge of the High Court, Justice Buba, who says, I haven't gone through all this because people don't understand. You just don't become national officers of a party. The most important part of the party is the word.
But that order is not being obeyed.
Yes, it's not being obeyed in disgraceful manner, but it's going to be obeyed because the essence of politics is election. And the INEC is bound to obey that order, irrespective of how lawless the handlers of PDP choose to become. And that's why I'm explaining to you, their thinking has been canvassed in court. It's not whether I feel their thinking is right or wrong. The courts have confirmed that their thinking is wrong. So they are now resorting to self-help. Self-help in civilized society is very barbaric. Having gone to the High Court, got the judgment, Justice Buba gave the judgment,
All right.
and they are...
If you could just hold the thought, we have Paul on the line. Go ahead, Paul, with your contribution, please.
Okay. I just wanted to ask him, what are they doing? What is the solution? What are they doing to resolve the crisis in Ogun State among the PDP members?
Okay.
Will they continue to keep the faction apart from each other? And how will they succeed if they continue with this crisis?
Thank you, Paul, for your questions. We'll definitely address that as we go along the line. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so, like I was saying, they canvassed in court that there is a Supreme Court judgment that gives them a blanket check to do whatever they like, which is not correct. The court have given ruling to the effect that the Supreme Court judgment has to do with a leadership tussle at national. And the Ogun State issue is of Congress at that state level. Before you go to the National Convention, you will have concluded the state congresses. And that's the problem they have been trying to solve in disobedience of subsisting court judgment. Okay. And that is how we got to this level.
But you would agree with me that all of these issues has to be resolved.
Well,
because the party has an interest at heart that it has to protect.
You see, quite honestly, you wonder what the interest of the leaders of the party at national is. Because let's be objective. Forget about me being directly involved. If there is a court judgment and you disobey a court judgment, and you don't have the leadership capacity to discuss and appeal to the judgment creditors to forgo, and you just do things in ridiculous manner culminating into expulsion, you are only aggravating the situation. And whether they like it or not, these are part of the problems that are culminated into bad governance and undemocratic dispositions in the country. All we are doing is more of strengthening democracy in Nigeria so that it is going to be difficult for people to exercise responsibility of high office without restraint and make it difficult for rule of law and constitution to be obeyed. Basically, there are one or two ways. If they were to be reasonable at the national of the party, they can solve it politically, but they are biased. That is the problem. Because if you expel people, it shows your bias. When you are expelling people with whom you have already joined issues and you have continuously lost to them in court, and you will remember when the court judgment was delivered in the High Court, Justice Ibrahim, then of High Court, now in the Appeal Court, Judge, the INEC wrote to them that they are obliged to obey this court judgment. This same chairman wrote back to INEC, advising INEC that he is expecting an appeal court judgment that will reverse that High Court. Fair enough. The appeal court judgment has come, you have lost, then you now expel. So it is ridiculous. But one thing is sacrosanct. In the next 30 to 45 days, we have to unavoidably join issues as to who will represent the party. We will unavoidably be forced to bring these people to obedience of court, judgment.
How do you intend to do that?
It's as simple. There are provisions, you see.
To take it back to the courts?
Whichever. On this issue of expulsion, it's already been challenged, but the process of administration of justice in Nigeria is very effective and sacrosanct. It's only when people don't show interest in fighting for their rights that all this impunity persists. I can assure you we are going to fight for this right because it's a contribution to growing the development of this country. It's a contribution to deepening democracy in Nigeria. It's about interest. When people talk about how you're going to win, I keep on feeling bad because we run this country on exigencies and we allow abnormality to thrive all the time. Because everybody now talk, election is coming, let's forget right, let's forget. When you forget that one, it comes back again. It comes back again. But when we solve this problem permanently, some overzealous national officers of party will be constrained from irresponsible administration of their responsibilities and benefits of their offices. Those are the issues. Like I sit and I just discovered I've been expelled. As I'm fighting it, I'm fighting for millions of Nigerians who probably might not have the capacity to do what I am doing, who are daily and severally being raped out of democracy.
All right, quickly, we have Dixon on the line calling from Ogun State. Dixon. All right, so go ahead with your contribution.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I am Big Show by name, calling from Paisho and University of Education.
All right.
Yeah, sincerely speaking, the explosion of Senator Buruji Kashamo can stand in Ogun State due to the fact that we have a constitution guiding PDP. And whenever an allegation is being placed on any PDP member, he or she will be referred to disciplinary committee. And he or she will be asked to present his or her case before they can explain such PDP member. And any member, any decision taken against any member who has not been informed of the charge against him or her has the opportunity of defending himself and shall be a non-afford explosion. So on this note, the explosion and suspension of Senator Buiji Kashamu and PSS can stand in Ogun State. Sincerely speaking, I am a fan of Buiji Kashamu. I am Big Show by name, and he has been my helper right from time.
All right, Big Show, thank you for your contribution.
You see, talking very honestly, I sympathize with our national chairman. I sympathize with the national chairman of PDP because he is quite unfortunate. I read this memo several times, and I'm the more sympathetic of how he found himself in this kind of situation. It is also very unfortunate that he is trying to justify the fears of those who campaigned against him while aspiring to be chairman. You know, he was the national organizing secretary when all those rubbish primaries of impunity were being overturned in PDP. The Amechi, the Ararume. He said, we can't run Nigeria like this. Nigeria wants to move ahead from this madness of self-aggrandizement. You must comport yourself within rules of the eminence of your position. You can't just be behaving irrationally as if an ordinary person doesn't have right. Go to the Benin Republic over there. If you hit a motorcyclist, he's going to arrogantly confront you, aware that he's protected by the law. We cannot run a country like jungle. You cannot just say right is might is right. It's not possible. We are doing all this not as of self-interest. There's nothing. There's no big deal. I am one of the founders of PDP. I joined as one of the 16 associations that signed the charter that founded this party. I don't know where they were then, but that's not the issue. The beauty of democracy is that we must work within rules and we must enjoy freedom. Otherwise, why are we not in military? This damn thing is not going to stand. And by the time it falls like pack of cards, they will be drawing the hand of the clock of the party backwards. It won't be our fault. It is the fault of the purposeless leadership.
All right, now one question that has been coming to the minds of a lot of people is why can't issues be amicably resolved, sit down, and each gladiator come together and say, let's talk?
The problem is, as we are doing now, they have bastardized all the organs of our party with avoidable...
At the state level?
At the national level.
Okay.
With avoidable selfishness. The other time, there was a court judgment. They ridiculously, under the ignominious caretaker, they ridiculously went to a convention as if the Supreme Court says your convention is supreme, it means supreme over Nigeria. Does that make logic? They did a convention and said, our convention has said this. It doesn't make sense. Now, the NEC is a very top-ranking organ of our party. When the national chairman and the working committee present fraud to the NEC to approve, isn't that ridiculous? You didn't give people fair hearing, you were propelled by self-interest, and you misdirected the NEC. Those are organs that should have protected the party from disintegration, including the BOT. But having said that, all these issues were propelled by inordinate ambition.
All right, quickly, because we are running out of time, what does this portend for the future of the party in the state? Because a lot of people are saying that Senator Buiji Kashamu is a strong grassroots politician and all of that. But then, what does it portend for the party?
All these portend success for the party, luckily because the popular driver of the party are within the right side of the law. It would have been terrible for the party if the impostors were on the right side of the law. The moment we saw this issue of law...
We have Bimbo on the line. Bimbo, go ahead with your contribution.
Oh, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I just want to start by, with the last statement you made that we don't know why it's so difficult for politicians to come to the round table and solve issues, especially within party, amicably, if they actually have the interest of the masses at heart. You know, PDP crisis in Ogun State is becoming a thorn in the flesh, and the masses are looking up to them as a formidable opposition to come in and tackle all the excesses of the present administration. But here they are. They cannot even solve their own problems within the house. So where would the masses look up to? Who is going to save the masses from all this mess? I just want to implore them, both factions, that they should come back to the round table and resolve this amicably. The laws should be followed. They have constitution guiding their party, regardless of whatever. They should follow the constitution. They should follow what the constitution says about
thank you for your contribution. We're running out of time. Right,
honestly, the masses of Ogun State are looking up to PDP for government. But the truth of the matter is we cannot continue to run national issues on exigencies. There are regulations, and I can assure you, at the full of time, and that's why I said in the next 30 days to 45 days, given the INEC timetable, there must be primaries, and the rule of law will take its course, and we will still have months to realign with the masses of Ogun State who are looking up to us to deliver good governance.
Certain you have enough time. What happens if after the 30 days elapse and this is not resolved?
It's going to be resolved because the position of law is clear. You see, it's difficult when you...
It has been clear all this time, yet cases has been coming up.
That is why Nigeria has not moved. The moment things look clear, some stubborn people who are eminently wrongly in positions would disturb it. But Amaechi issue happened. You are not getting my point. If we continue to tolerate abnormalities because of exigency, we will be empowering wrongdoing. We can't run a country with wrongdoing. We must stand and, you see, if, for instance, I am a desperate politician looking for office, I will be running after this madness. But it can't happen. Somebody needs to stand up and say, this is wrong. Until we have multiple of people challenging overbearing leaders, you know, look at the scenario in Ekiti. An old gubernatorial candidate was deprived of campaign. The sitting governor was the person contesting as if he's going to go in again, doing like pastor, putting a hand on. It's a ridiculous drama. If you see the audacity with which those with this disadvantage do to people, you will be shocked. We can't tolerate this. It's not reasonable. The few that are not desperate like us will challenge the abnormality. Majority that are hoping that maybe they will favor them along the illegality can continue. But by the grace of God, truth will triumph over falsehood. That's empirically the issue. Unless we face the rule of law, there's no basis for relating. We are not friends. We were brought together by the constitution of this party. One day you were elected the chairman, even in circumstances that we can challenge, because when there was no free aspiration, and you know, election is not about unity, it's about unity in diversity. And you were forced on us with a unity list. Okay, let us talk about party. You are still forcing it on us that we cannot exist. Then we are becoming less Nigerian in Nigeria. It doesn't make sense.
All right, Prince Segun Seriki, a PDP chieftain from Ogun State.
By the grace of God. Because let's disregard the expulsion. I said by the grace of God.
Thank you for your time on the program. We do hope that this issue is resolved as soon as possible. Well, that's it on today's edition of Standpoint. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Veronica Dan Ikboy. Enjoy your weekend.